On this virtual machine that is running the same operating systems as the KLab, I have a home directory with a CS4400 folder that has two files in it, one.txt and two.txt. I could double click on those to see what's inside of them, but instead I'm going to start up Terminal and use the command line to look in the files instead. So I go into that directory. I started on my home directory. I go there with cd CS4400. Using ls shows that there's two files there. I can use the program cat, which is in the directory /bin, to look at each file. So I can look at the content of one.txt, I can look at the content of two.txt, or bincat can work with multiple files at once. I can look at one.txt and two.txt. Now, bincat's job is to show me the content of a file, so that's why it treats its arguments as file names. Other programs, like binecho, don't. Echo takes those arguments and just prints them back out. What if I have extra space in between the arguments for binecho? Then you don't see the extra space printed back out. So you can see that there's certain things that programs decide, like what to do with the arguments, but how about how those arguments are handled and how that white space is handled? In general, when you use a command line, then there's some sort of prompt, and then you write a program name or a command name, we'll come back to that, and then some number of arguments. Now, actually the command line itself is a program. By default, it's the program bash, which lives in the bin directory. And bash is the one that decides when I type /bin/echo that it's going to use that as a file name, and that when I write two other things with spaces in between, that those are separate arguments. And then it passes those individual arguments for echo. So echo actually doesn't get a choice about whether to display this space in between one.txt and two.txt. It doesn't see them. It sees a space b the same as a space b, because the parsing is determined by bash. Now what if I want to have a and b with some space in between? Well, bash provides rules that says quotes mark, double quotes, is an escaping character. And so it'll cause space not to mean a separator between arguments, and that space will get passed along. So I can say binecho with quote marks around the a and b, and you see that a and b print with some space in between them, not with quote marks around them. When I wrote that on the slide, the little argument blue brace underneath doesn't include the quotes. That's on purpose. The quotes just prevent space from meaning a separator between arguments, but it's still but the quotes are not themselves part of the argument. What if I wanted to include quote in my argument? So I want to say binecho, I said hello, right? And if I wanted the quote marks to show up, it's not going to work, of course, but if I can get them to show up by using single quotes around the double quotes. And that's because single quotes in general are also escapes, and they're slightly different escapes than double quotes. In particular, you can put double quotes inside of single quotes. You can also put single quotes inside of double quotes. So both double quotes and single quotes turn out to be escape mechanisms in bash. There's a whole lot of other little rules to the language of command lines in bash. If you want more information, you could search on the web, or you can type man bash. That's really running bin man bash. And I happen to know that it's in the quoting section, so if I hit /type quoting, then it'll search down to that part and it tells you about the escapes.